tonight's meeting here in City Council chambers, as well as virtually using Zoom and online on the city's Wave Channel 18 and the YouTube channel. If you would like to participate in live public comment via the Zoom platform, please refer to the agenda for instructions, and Pastor Fred Benzel will be giving the invocation tonight, and Mayor Carlskent will begin the meeting immediately after.
All right. Thank you. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for your good hand upon us, your love, your grace. And Father, we're thankful for our city, Lincoln, for our community. We pray your hand of grace and wisdom would be upon our council members, not just tonight, but in the days ahead. And in fact, all of our city officials, we pray your hand of protection and safety upon our police department, our fire department. Lord, may you protect them as they protect us. We also ask for your continued protection for all of our schools, our churches, our city of businesses, Father, and we thank you for that, and we just pray that all would be done for the betterment of our community. We thank you for it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Please call the roll.
Yes. Councilmember Andriotta?
Here.
Councilmember Brown?
Here.
Councilmember Joyner?
Here.
Councilmember Lauritsen?
Here.
And Mayor Carlskent?
Here. Report for closed session, there was none, so no report. Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman Lawrenson, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Sure.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is agenda modifications. Any suggested modifications
No,
from
Mayor.
staff or council? Seeing none, we go on to presentations. We have only one presentation tonight, and Ms. Nita Wacker will give us the report on our audit, yearly audit.
Good evening, Nita Racker, Finance Director for the city. And this evening, we will be presenting the summary of the audit results for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2023. And actually, I'll be having all of the heavy lifting done by Eric Pastor, partner and managing audit director for our audit this year with MUM CPAs LLC. I will just remind the council that the city is required every year to have an annual audit of its financial reports. Wow, I just completely lost my train of thought. I apologize. It's okay. It's been a long day. And this year is no different from that. MUM's job is to do a review of our financial reports, as Erica will mention, so I'm not going to steal her thunder. So without any further ado, I will turn it over to her.
And you don't have to think anymore.
Yeah, there you go.
The clicker and click towards here. Okay, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
As Anita said, I am going to go ahead and present the audit results for the June 30th, 2023 audit. We did meet with the FIOC committee last week, and so we did go over these results in detail. My presentation today will be a little bit more summarized, but at the end, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer. Okay, so the first thing that we always want to make sure that everyone is aware of is that these financial statements that we audit are management's responsibility. When they are presented to us, they are all prepared by management. Our job then is to come in and present and review and make sure that these financial statements don't contain any material, large, significant errors, and that they're presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, GAAP, as you'll see in this presentation. Our audit process is a two-phase process. We begin our interim work usually in the summertime. This year was June 2023. During that time, we start our audit by developing an understanding of what went on in the city. We want to make sure we're aware of any significant events. We'll review council minutes, look at approved resolutions, agreements, things like that. Inquire with management, again, what do we need to be aware of that happened this year? At that time, we also want to develop an understanding of what the internal controls are for the different significant financial processes that the city has. So we take a look at how receipts are collected, how disbursements and checks are written and approved. We'll look at the payroll process. And most importantly, we'll look at how journal entries are recorded, the bank reconciliation process, and financial reporting. Because ultimately, we want to make sure that you guys as council and the finance committee are receiving timely and accurate information so you can make your decisions about the city. Okay. We come back once the books are closed after June 30th. So we came back very end of October, last week of October, first week of November, to perform the year-end process. And so that's when we actually take a look at the numbers. Some of the procedures that we perform, we confirm balances with your financial institutions. So we'll look at your cash and investment balances, make sure those are accurate. We perform a lot of cutoff testing. So we want to look at transactions that occur right before and after the June 30th cutoff date, make sure those are recorded in the proper period. We do various detailed tests of transactions. And then we also perform a high-level analytical review. Again, everything that we've learned, all the information we've gathered from the city, does this all make sense when we look at it at a high level? We also perform a single audit, which is in relation to all the federal grant expenditures that a city receives. A city is required to do that anytime you receive more than $750,000 in federal grants. So we did that audit. Then we also assisted in the preparation of your financial statements and the related footnotes, which I'm sure you guys have all seen is a really big, thick packet. So as a result of the audit, there are lots of different reports and letters that we issue, and I'm going to go over all of those. And then upcoming slides, there's 5 total reports that we issue as a result of the audit. The first one, as I mentioned, it's going to be part of the big financial packet that you receive, the financial report. That's known as your ACFR, the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. There's different sections of that report. There's an introductory section that talks a little bit about the city, the financial section, which is actually what we audit. And then there's also some statistical information in the very back of that big report that has additional economic demographic information about the city. But the financial section is most importantly what we take a look at, what we audit, and where you're going to find the audit opinion. So for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2023, we issued an unmodified, so in auditor's language, that means clean, opinion. That's the best opinion you can get for an audit, the highest opinion. It indicates that those financial statements, as they're being presented to you in that report, are accurate. There's no significant errors in it. It's presented in accordance with GAAP. Okay, so again, that's the cleanest opinion you can get for an audit. The next report that we issue is a report required by government auditing standards. This report would communicate to you any significant kind of bigger audit findings that we found during the audit. There are 3 types that would be reported. There's a material weakness, a significant deficiency, and a compliance exception. And so for fiscal year 2023, we did have 1 material weakness. It's in relation to the city's accounting for their special assessment bond proceeds. A little background here, this was actually reported as a material weakness back in fiscal year 2020. The management at the time from the city did take a look at it. They discovered that there were some transactions that occurred in prior years, and we're talking maybe 10, 15 years ago, that weren't correct. They had put in a policy, an internal policy to correct those transactions moving forward. So therefore, because that policy was put in place for fiscal years 21 and 22, the finding dropped off. However, in fiscal year 23, the current management found that there were still some things that needed to be cleaned up. So they decided to take the more conservative approach and say, hey, let's go back. Let's really try to find all these records, try to clean this up as best as we can. And because of the significance of the journal entries and the adjustments that had to be made to your prior balances, that's why we had to report it as a material weakness. But again, management is really trying to take the conservative approach to clean this up properly. Again, these records go back 10, 15 years. So they're doing their best to dig up all these records and to make sure that these things are going to be recorded correctly. So there is some potential for some future adjustments as well. They're hoping, and Nita can correct me if I'm wrong, to get this all cleaned up within this next fiscal year. Okay. In terms of significant deficiencies, that would be kind of your next level of a finding. There were none to report for there, and then there was also no compliance exceptions. Okay, the next report we issue is your single audit. Again, as I mentioned, this is when a city receives federal grants. More than 750,000, you're required to have a single audit. So we take a look at all the different federal awards you receive. We test most of them. It depends on there's a calculation that we have to do. And so for the current year, we tested the coronavirus relief funds that the city had. I think it was about $1.9 million in federal grants that were received. We tested that. Again, there was an unmodified or clean opinion in relation to all those federal expenditures. We had no findings in relation to the internal controls over those grant awards, and then no compliance exceptions. Okay, the next letter, this is on number 4. This is the audit conclusion letter. We're required to communicate to you any kind of like a high level, were there new accounting policies? Did we have any disagreements with management and so forth? And so for this year, there was a new accounting pronouncement that the city had to implement. It's known as GASB 96. It's subscription-based information technology arrangements. It is a mouthful. Basically, what that means is the city had to put on their books any type of long-term IT contracts on their balance sheet. Meaning if they had a long-term IT contract, that really means you have an intangible asset now to use this IT software. So the city now is a requirement to put that on their books, on their balance sheet. Likewise, the related liability. So they have a contract, a liability to pay out, whatever this contract's going to be. That liability now is also on the city's books. That was implemented this year. Because of that, there are some footnotes there that will describe the impact of that accounting standard being implemented. Accounting estimates were required to report to you. Those are in every financial statement. We have to review them, make sure that they're reasonable. As I mentioned, we had no difficulties encountered during the audit. We had no disagreements with management. I just want to have a quick side note here to give kudos to Nita and her team. We request a lot of information. It takes a lot of time to organize, to put lists together, to put schedules together. Well, we have, I think, 6 people out here at once going to poor just Janelle and Nita, bombarding her with questions, and they're very thorough. So I just wanted to recognize that and the hard work that, again, on all the work it takes for this audit. No disagreements with management. In this letter, we do reference the material weakness in relation to the special assessment bonds, again, just because of the size of the adjustments that were posted this year. In relation to audit adjustments that we had to post, there was about 7 of them. Nothing major that we didn't think that were, alarming related to various audit sections. We also had what we call a past adjustment, where they were smaller adjustments that we didn't end up booking because they weren't material to the financial statements. Okay, the last letter that we issue is a management letter. What this is if there are any kind of smaller type of control deficiencies or recommendations for improvement. A lot of these are just related to all those adjustments that we found. So if there was a misposting, if something got miscoded that we found, things like that. A schedule sometimes might not reconcile exactly to the dollar. So things like that, that's really what this management letter covers is as a result of all the adjustments we found. Here are some recommendations for improvement. And again, management is really proactive. Anytime we give them a recommendation, it's implemented right away or they're in a process to implement it. Last year, again, we only had 3 comments on the management letter and all of those were implemented. None of those were repeat findings. Okay, so in summary, for again, fiscal year 2023, it was an unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements. Same thing with your federal grant awards, that type of audit. We didn't have any findings. We had 1 material weakness, but really this is related to older transactions. Again, nothing that occurred within the current year. They're just, again, trying to clean things up. No significant deficiencies or compliance exceptions, and then a few audit adjustments. And again, that was a lot of information to take, a lot of reports we issue. I'm happy to answer any questions about the audit reports or the audit process.
Comments?
Not in the moment. Thank you for that. That was great. Appreciate it.
And the number, for instance, of journal entry corrections that had to be made, 7?
Yes, there were
You
7.
know, it used to be hundreds.
Yes.
It literally used to be hundreds.
Mhm.
So it's a tribute to our
Yeah.
staff.
And I
Yes.
just, I want to give a shout out to Janelle Schneider, our principal accountant. This was her first year, she's newly promoted into a supervisor role, her first time leading the audit. And, the finance department it's a busy, busy place. So I said, you go, let me know if you need help. So this was really the fact that the audit went as smoothly as it did, that she handled the, I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of requests for informations and questions from the auditors. It's a tribute to her skill and her dedication to this city.
And she's still here.
And she's still here.
Yeah.
I think she thinks about that some days, though.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any, would the treasurer like to elicit profound?
Richard Pearl, City Treasurer and Chair of the Fiscal Investment Oversight Committee. We did have a meeting last week. It presented to us, it was, I think, more than a 2-hour meeting. That was the only topic that we discussed during that whole time. There were a lot of questions that we had. They were all answered by Finance. And Mayor, I join you in just applauding the quality of the audit this year and how far we've come, because many of us remember what those bad days were like. So this is very good. Congratulations to the accounting staff and to the audit team. Thank you.
Are there any comments from the public,
Public comment.
even though it's a presentation? Any questions? Seeing none.
I would just merely remind the council that this is a receive and file item, a presentation only. There's no vote required, and we will bring this back up again next year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank you.
for all your hard work. Really, really appreciate
Yeah,
it. Yes.
absolutely, really well done.
So-
Thank you.
I would like to just add too, because it seems like we're just moving past it, but we're not. This is amazing work.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to add my info to that
Yeah.
too. Really is.
I'd like to make one public. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the public comment on non-agenda items. I have 2 cards. And from the people in the audience, Deborah Gilchrist.
Council and everybody else present. My mother-in-law presented last time. I'm going to take a little bit of time just to start the timeline. We only have 3 minutes, so I'm going to go to the point that then she's going to present. So hopefully it will make a little bit more sense. So we purchased our home in July of 2004 at 2722 Ledgestone Lane. We moved into our home October of 2004. We installed our backyard in 2007. The only hiccup with the installation of our backyard was a patio cover that the inspector said he could not sign off on because we did not have a 5-foot clearance. Our backdoor neighbor had obviously moved their back fence out 5 feet at least, it appeared. So I asked him, can we move our fence out because we need that patio cover to cover our outdoor kitchen? He said he did not know. He said that he would go and check and get back to us, which he did a couple of days later. And he said, yes, Deborah, you can move your fence out. You can also move it all the way to the sidewalk because that's your property line. But if you move it to the sidewalk, you would have to install a retaining wall. We hadn't even considered a retaining wall at that point. We needed to find out how much it would be. It's 85 feet plus, and it was very expensive. So we had the option of moving the fence out on the dirt or building a retaining wall. At that time, it was just cosmetic. Our backyard plan, the fence would be right up against the concrete. So we would have liked a little bit of space to have some planting area. So it was completely at that point cosmetic, at least we thought. So because of the expense of a retaining wall, we chose just to move the fence out 5 feet so that we could clear the patio and go ahead and install that. We moved forward with that. The inspector, your city inspector, did not require anything. All he required of us was which option did we want to go with, and he had to document it. We chose the option just to move the fence out so it sat on the dirt. So we had a beautiful backyard for about 10 years, 2017, 2018. And then our concrete started cracking, started with hairline cracks, which quickly turned into 2 to 3 inch cracks. Whole sections of our concrete, one season would be like this, the next year it would be like this. 4 sections of our concrete along the street side of our house broke away from our pool deck and was sliding off the slope of our house. Our property sits about 50 inches above street level. So now we have a huge problem. What's going on? So we contacted an engineer, talked to the engineer. We FaceTimed, showed him pictures of our property. He said, Deborah, you don't need to pay me money. All you need is about a 40-inch wall. You need to shore up that side of your property so that your property is not falling off into the street. He told us how to build it, which was cinder block, rebarb, concrete. So we moved forward and built the wall. Our wall went in the fall of 2019. At that time, guess I don't get to finish. I'll tell you next year.
Next card I have is for Julie Gilchrist, strangely enough.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you again. I'm going to talk tonight about the wall. The wall is, as Deborah has said, is vital for their property. It was engineered, and then later, when all of the concerns came up, they were asked to have it engineered again, and it was engineered and by a geotechnical engineer, which is a soils engineer. And out of the report, there was one sentence that I thought was really germane to what we're talking about. And it said the existing retaining wall is stable under current conditions. That's talking about the surcharge and the compaction behind it. It is settled over 4 winters, and it is now part of the landscape, and it is holding the backyard that Deborah was referring to in place. So to move that would totally disrupt the wall. 85 feet of wall at that in 2019 cost nearly $10,000. I want you to think about how much it would cost in today's cost to tear the wall down and to move it and to totally disrupt the soil behind it. It just doesn't make sense. Several years ago, I was a planning commissioner, and the city manager said, there's 3 things you need to look at. You need to look at cost and maintenance and major common sense. It doesn't make common sense to move that wall. Now I'd like to talk about the fence that was on top of it. The fence that was on top of it was the old fence. Because of the cost of replacing the new one, they put the old ratty wall, slats back up, and it really was an ugly, ugly fence. So finally, the finances were available, so they're going to put decorative rock in front of the cinder block and replace the ratty old fence with a beautiful cedar fence. As soon as it was down, there was someone from the city that came and said, you cannot do this anymore. You have to stop here. It's a cease and desist. You cannot put anything on top of that wall, which opened the backyard to completely visual to the street. There was a swimming pool in that backyard. There were, had I more time, I would tell you what the kind of vandalism was caused because that was open. But I will just tell you that there is a swimming pool there that was totally open, and it is totally against your own recommendations and that of the California Building Code. So I would hope you would consider letting them have the fence where it is. Thank you.
Any other people that would like to make public comment on items that are not on the agenda? Not?
We-
I'll close.
Yeah, we do have a few people on Zoom, but no hands are raised.
No, okay. So I will close public comment. There is no reason at all to discuss or ask questions on the last item, so we'll now go to the consent calendar. Do any of my colleagues wish to pull an item?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to pull 8F, please.
F is in Frank?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else? I have a request from the audience to pull 8C, Charlie. So, anybody online wishing to pull?
Again, we have a few people, but no hands are raised, Mayor.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve all but the 2 items that have been pulled.
I move,
Go ahead.
I move to approve the rest.
Motion is,
I'll second.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner?
Yes.
Councilmember Andriotta?
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen?
Yes.
And Mayor Carlskent.
yes. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Not,
Okay.
we can do that one first. Go ahead.
So in
Do you
order to
need a
give you the
present-
opportunity to speak
You
to it,
a
we need to pull it.
Presentation first. On
I
what?
just, I'm gonna speak really quick. It's just about the approval. It's on the agenda to be discussed and approved, correct?
Yes.
And someone's made a motion to take it away?
No, 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 no.
No,
We just, you pulled it to ask questions or to have a presentation.
right.
I just wanted to,
It's on the consent. Nobody pulled it to dispute
Okay.
it.
that's all I'm
Yep.
asking.
Yep.
So when it comes up, I can speak, or do I need to
It's
speak
up now.
It's up now.
Okay,
Go
all
ahead.
right. First of all, 8C is about some stop signs over at over off of Haywood Wood, at the new development. I spoke in January about that.
Right.
I want to commend Sean, Vin, and staff for recommending that to go forward. I went on a campaign for 100 families in that neighborhood to promote the safety of the neighborhood. And I was shocked the next morning how quick these gentlemen worked to get the speed box out there the next morning as I woke up. And they've done an excellent job, and I commend them wholeheartedly for the efforts to protect that community. That's really all I have to say. I want to thank these gentlemen and staff and you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love to hear that.
Yeah, that's always good.
Okay, so I guess,
Public?
and are there any questions from the video?
No one online.
No more questions from the audience? Then I'll accept the motion.
I move approval of 8C.
Second?
Thank you. Councilmember Andriotta?
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen?
Yes.
And Mayor Carlskent.
Yes. Next item is 8F, pulled by.
Mhm. Yes, Mayor, thank you. I'm completely in favor of extending the utility assistance program, but I just thought it might be helpful for Nita to share with us how that's going since we, passed the utility rate increases. We created this program, staff created this program to help people who needed it. And so I just thought it would be good to hear how it's going, how many people are taking advantage of it, and then we can pass it to extend it if we want to. So thank you, Nita.
Sure, I'm happy to give that report. So just as a quick reminder that we had requested the creation of this program in advance of the increase to the utility rates to help our low and our low-income customers within the city. We developed a program that where if someone else is participating in another low-income program, such as, the PG&E Cares or CalFresh or WIC or some other program like that, that they automatically qualify for our program. They just have to complete a simple application and provide proof of being in another program. In the beginning, the first month that we offered this, we had 257 people sign up for it. over the last 4 months. So we now have, as of the end of January, a total of 533 account holders that signed up for it. So we're estimating, well, as of the end of January, we used about $40,000 of the initial contribution to this fund, which was 200,000, if I'm remembering correctly. Yes, 200,000. We estimate that by the end of March, which was the end of the initial 6-month period, we'll have used about $64,000. We are at this time asking for a 6-month extension. There are sufficient funds in the initial contribution to support the extension without any more funds needed. The program overall is going well. I'll say that the majority of the people who apply, I think, in fact, we may have denied one application, but of everyone else who's applied, they have been approved and they are now receiving this benefit. Generally, people seem appreciative that the city has offered this benefit, this assistance with for the increase to the utilities. I am committed to bring back a report. I'll probably bring back a report in June where we can discuss at that time the funds that have been used and the council's appetite, what they want to do with the future of this program.
Thank you, Nita. I appreciate that.
Any question? I have one, and that's how stable is the 500 number?
Well, it changes every month, so we have not closed the program to new applicants, but it has petered off. So for example, between December and January, we only had about 32 people sign up. The first month was, of course, the highest number. We had a little spurt around the holidays of additional signups of like over 100 people. But last January, we only had 30-ish. So
By the time you get to June and do your report, you should have a stable base for forecast.
yeah, and you know, the council could consider closing it to new applicants at that time. They could say, all right, these are the people who are in it, and we're not going to accept any additional applications. I wouldn't actually recommend that, but that is, of course, a council decision.
But we listen to you. Okay. Any other questions from the council? From the audience, please. Come up and use a
Come on,
podium.
Chris, you know how this works.
But
Otherwise,
it's directly to you. Anita, how much each month is it costing?
Pardon me, I did provide that information. So for example, in the first month, it was $6,000 that we provided to accounts. Last month, which is the highest number of participants so far, it was $12,000 a month. So I did kind of estimate, you know, let's assume we get no more people, it'll be $12,000 a month for the next 3 months. But if we get additional applicants, that total dollar will go up a bit.
Okay, so it's 10 to 12.
Yeah, right now it's $12,000. It won't be less than $12,000. We're not kicking anybody off the program,
Right.
right? So it won't be less than that. Could increase a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Why does the Lincoln Community Foundation want to give us money for this program?
That's why I was asking.
I had a feeling.
Okay. No further questions? Thank you, Nita.
Thank you, Nita.
I'll accept the motion.
Okay, I move approval for item 8F.
I'll second.
Got the motion in a second.
Councilmember Andriotic?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner?
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen?
Yes.
And Mayor Carlskint.
Yes.
Awesome.
Finishes the consent agenda. We go off to public hearings, no public hearings. Wow. And
Moving right along.
which I have trouble with those. Next item is general business. First item on that is Resolution 2024-037, authorizing us to enter into an agreement for the airport hangar development of aircraft storage at the airport.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and good evening, Council. I'm we actually initially had put this on consent, Gwen and I, and then I rethought it and I thought, this is something we really do need to talk a little bit more about. Not only because it's a significant financial deal for the airport and city, but also it's a little bit historic, and I'll explain why in a minute. But so one of the things is the council will recall that was placed on sort of my you shall do list is sort out the airport both from a financial and operational perspective. And the mechanisms and mechanics of how that was to be done was sort of left up to, well, first me, and then subsequently the council reformed the airport committee. And so I'm just going to say out front that any credit for the project that we're presenting tonight really needs to go to that group and that body. It has been transformational from a staff perspective to get to interact with true aviation professionals that really know how airports work. Because I could be wrong, but I don't think that any, at least of the staff that attend those meetings are pilots or folks that spend their time in the air. And so we need professionals that know that so that we can make deals that make sense. So the question was, how do we dig the airport out of a pretty significant financial hole and put it into a position where it can really be successful and be the asset you want it to be moving forward? And there's a variety of things we're doing. But just tonight, what we're discussing is capitalizing on what we do have out there, which is land and available property for development of hangars. And one of the things that Councilmember Joyner has mentioned a number of times over a couple of years with me is that they're not really building new airports, at least not in California. And so we do have an asset that's unique and valuable. And it turns out that there's significant interest, who would have thunk, in developing the airport. So in order to dig out of the hole, I think the model for many years at the airport had been build hangars. Sometimes the city would build them, sometimes they would lease ground and have them built and raise up your rental revenue. That model is gone and it will never come back because the cost to develop any building these days is very expensive. And so our path forward to make the airport a financially viable enterprise is fuel sales. So why are we here talking about hangars? Well, the more hangars you have, the more pilots you have that are using your airport, the assumption and hope is that the more fuel sales that you will sell at the airport. So after a lot of discussion at the airport committee, the committee decided to issue a request for proposals to the marketplace saying, hey, we are interested in the building of hangars out at the airport. And initially, the proposal was for the building of T hangars, which if you don't know about airports or airplanes, they're basically hangars that are much smaller in footprint and really just designed literally to fit a plane in and then bring it out with not a lot of extra space. They're typically a little less expensive. They're for more general aviation users. And so we put out a proposal requesting 3 rows of hangars, which would essentially be about 48 T hangars. And to give you an idea, we have about 100 to 150, depending on the time period, wait list people that are waiting for hangars. And some of them have been waiting for more than 4 or 5 years to get one. So that's how rare it is that a hangar actually becomes available at the airport. So we feel very confident that more than sufficient market exists to make this possible. We issued the RFP. We set up a little small review committee amongst a couple of staff and a couple of airport committee members. We received 1 proposal and 1 tardy proposal. We only reviewed the one that was submitted in a timely manner, which is sort of standard for requests for proposals. Fortunately for us, it came from not only a current lessee at the airport, but someone that's very involved with the airport and has experience in development as well as aviation. Ed Sue is here tonight. I'm sure he'll want to speak somewhat, but let me just walk you through his proposal, which after a lot of discussion, an interview process, financial verification process, and then follow-up questions have has recommended approval to the airport committee, which then, I think it was last week, recommended approval to your city council for approval. It includes 48 new T hangars and up to 20 new 50 by 60 box hangars. Box hangars are much larger hangars that are typically reserved for larger aircraft, potentially even jet aircraft that you can, need more space and are typically far more expensive.
And use more gas.
And use jet fuel, which is the markup on jet fuel is significant. So in your staff report and in the associated documents, you'll see in the shaded area where those new hangars are built. This is all in compliance with the airport layout plan. It's exactly what the airport layout plan conceived when it was paid for and developed. There is nothing unique or different about what's being proposed. So the city would lease this ground to the developer, and the developer at his cost will develop those T hangars and box hangars. And the idea is that he will sell those to interested parties that would like to purchase them. The original RFP did not include box hangars as a component of the request. And typically, we don't really go outside of scope in RFPs, but it was written intentionally in a flexible way so that, because we didn't know enough about what the market or the business component of selling hangars is. It's not really the city's business to do that. And one of the things we learned throughout the process was that in order for this project to work, which is very expensive, box hangars were a key component in making this a profitable enterprise for the developer. And so after a lot of discussion, recommendations were made for approval. There is going to be a preference given to the extent possible for those folks that are already out at the airport that are just using tie downs in open areas so that they can find a home for their aircraft. There are many of those. In addition to that, the RFP did not require or request, but the developer has offered to contribute at completion of the project $250,000, which will, I think there's two triggers that issue one half of the payment, and those dollars the airport committee is recommending go towards some type of improvement at the airport, where it would be the runway rehabilitation project or some other expensive project that we otherwise haven't saved money for yet. So that's sort of the nuts and bolts of it. With approval this evening, the next step will be that Christina and I will complete a development agreement for the developer, which will be sort of a contractual document that sets forth some timelines and triggers. And I don't get the sense the developer feels this way, but from the city's perspective, we want to ensure that we don't lock up a bunch of land for a really long period of time and then something changes and the project doesn't get done. I don't get the sense that that's the case here, but it's a pretty standard process. And then Ed has let me know that he's already begun preliminary engineering on this as well as material procurement. And so I think that you probably see work starting to happen this year, and then hopefully within he'll have to speak to the construction timeline, but within, let's call it 12 to 18 months, folks will be moving in. And the only other thing I'll add, and then I will kick it to him, is that the success thus far of this process has led the airport committee to lean towards suggesting that we have an open and continuous proposal process, so that anyone else, any other interested party that may want to propose something for the city council to consider can do so in a sort of ongoing and continuous basis while there is a market that's interested in doing it. So our goal has been to not make mistakes that have been made in the past, which is when opportunity exists, we try to jump on it and move as quickly as possible, even though it's sometimes not as quick as we need to. So that's sort of the presentation. I can go into more of the detail. The entire RFP document is in your staff report. And then I certainly would like to invite Ed up if he would like to add anything to that as your awardee potentially. I think just hit the button.
Oh, okay. So this has been a one heck of a journey. I started with this vision about 18 months ago. And the reason for it was I needed a larger hangar for my plane. And then I looked around and I was talking to a lot of people at the airport, and there's such a waiting list out there that I felt compelled to actually act on my vision. And through the months, I've met a lot of you here in the room, and it's just been an amazing journey. And people show up in my life when they need to show up. And during this, I actually met the head of the aviation program at William Jessup. And I asked him, okay, what are the 3 top things you need to supercharge your program? And we went through that. And one of the things that was apparent is that they need infrastructure at Lincoln in order to actually have their operations at Lincoln, so then they don't have to keep on going up to Auburn, which is a 45-minute drive up there, and then it's a 45-minute drive back for their students. So with talking with Lou, the administrator at William Jessup, I decided that, well, heck, in my lifetime, I've been very, very fortunate, and I really want to help the younger generation. And these are younger folks that are coming up with a vision, and if I can help stoke that and create a spark and help them on their way to a career, maybe they end up in the military and they fly for this wonderful country. Maybe they fly us around when we're older, right? I mean, seriously, I mean, these are the younger generation. So it's an honor for this project, for me to be considered. And it's also an honor to serve our younger generation as well. Again, I know many of you here in this room, and those that I don't know, I'm sure you're going to get a call from me because I'm going to need a little bit of help on this project. It's been a wonderful collaboration between a lot of you here in this room, and also a lot of people that aren't here in this room on the city side as well. So this has been a wonderful experience for me. So thank you.
That's great.
By the way, Ben, he was looking right at you when he said he was going to need some help.
No questions on the items? Comments? Does anybody in the audience have any questions?
Yep.
Sorry.
Wait, go ahead. He's going to public comment. Go ahead, sir.
Come on.
Got 3 minutes. So my name is Brandon Culp. I'm a resident of Lincoln since 2005. A big consideration of moving to Lincoln was the airport. Obtained my pilot's license in 2006 at Lincoln Airport from Macken Air, which is now out of business. But I've been at that airport since then and had a airplane based at Lincoln since 2006. And finding hangar space has always been very difficult out there. When even those shed hangars that leak and have water in them, you know, if somebody has one for rent, they get swept up. You have to know somebody to get a hangar out there. And in past years, city managers and councils have not been as friendly to the airport community out there. A lot of us airport users felt kind of alienated, but this city manager and this city council has been very, very helpful out at the airport. And I thank Sean because he came out and spoke to the EA a couple weeks ago and had some great information for us. And I've witnessed a resurgence of interest in the airport by the city, and starting up the airport committee has been great. I work nights, so I'm unable to attend those meetings, but I've been watching them on the recordings. And I encourage you to adopt this resolution with Executive Hangars of LLC at Sioux. Ed has not only assembled a competent design and construction team, but many of those team members are active airport community members. I know them personally. Mark Carey is principal engineer, is an avid pilot. He's built 2 home-built airplanes. He's been out to Lincoln Airport, had a hangar out there. Many of those members And he has a pivotal role in the civil engineering work in the city of Lincoln, Del Webb, for example. So you got an engineering team that is familiar with the city. One of his engineers, Shannon Goldel, is a active member, and I think he's the only person at the airport more than me. Shannon's can always be seen at Sunset flying his Champ. And he would, manage that project very well. He knows that airport operation very well. And other members of the team, of course, are out at the airport and airport users. And this is all to say that Executive Hangars of Lincoln LLC and Ed are not out to make a quick buck. They're actually involved in the airport. They're airport members out there, and I see Ed out there every week. He's out there on Saturday flying his plane, taking people for flights. He's very, very passionate about aviation, and I'm glad that he is in consideration for this proposal. And I believe that this project is not only in the interest of the airport, it's in the interest of the city of Lincoln and Placer County overall. So thank you.
Any other?
First, I've heard about this. How many hangars are there currently? And how many are you proposing? What about the noise? That airport is so close to Lincoln. As a resident of Lincoln, I'm concerned about that. So could you talk about that?
Sure. Well, the proposal is 62 hangars. There are, I don't know the exact number of hangars that exist out there, but probably closer to a couple hundred would be my guess. As far as noise goes, I actually happen to live directly under the flight path of the airport. And I can tell you that, yes, there's a lot of activity coming in and out of the airport. But generally it is daytime use. We have some nighttime use, but it's fairly rare at the airport. And that airport has existed for
World War II.
so 80 years. And we do periodically, rarely, but periodically we'll get some complaints, primarily from the Foskett area that's immediately adjacent to the airport, about flight patterns, and it's pretty loud. But, to be frank, it is a super important public asset that I think is part of moving to that part of the community. And so when we do get those complaints, we always try to advise folks that are maybe coming in to purchase a home, hey, you're going to be living near an airport, and so there is some inconvenience that you're likely to experience as a result of that. It's really no different than some of the complaints that we get related to train noise. They're these public facilities that have existed prior to most of Lincoln being built. So
Right.
80 years ago in Lincoln, I would guess the city was about 2,000 people, probably.
Right.
And so in a funny way, the city actually grew around the airport, not vice versa.
And I live actually right next to the airport, and it's not a problem. It's not, you hear the planes in the distance, but it's not a lot of noise. And this is something that, and I actually even feel silly speaking about how much of a priority this is, because Councilmember Joyner has been working on this for a lot more years than I have. But this airport has the potential to be something really, really great. It's already cool that we have airport, but this could be something really special. And I appreciate last year when we had our strategic retreat and we laid out our priorities, Sean and staff, they heard us and they ran with it. And I'm super grateful that we are finally gaining traction. We are finally moving forward in the direction that we want to. And I've had an opportunity to meet with Ed several times in my position at Jessup University. And what's really great about that is what's awesome about my job. In a lot of ways, there's a lot of crossover. So I'm sitting here on this council. This airport has been a priority for me since I was on this council, but I also get to help raise money for the aviation program for Jessup on that side. And so to be able to work with Ed, he is somebody that really cares about it. He's not here to make, as Brandon, right? Brandon said he's not here to make a quick buck. Ed cares about the students. He cares about Lincoln. He cares about the airport. And his passion just bubbles over, and I love it. And so it's been a pleasure to get to know Ed. and just hear his plans. And in fact, he was actually kind of funny because we were having lunch in the Jessup Cafe for that particular reason for the aviation program. And he actually had a proposal that had City of Lincoln on it and all this. And he goes, and he didn't show it to me. He goes, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to show this to you. So I just said, well, I'll see it soon enough. It's fine. But I knew then that he was really excited about this. So I'm grateful. I'm excited about it. I think I'm happy that we're finally getting there. And I also, not to get off track, but hope that we're still working on all of the other code enforcement things where we're clearing out people that should not be there, that are using hangars for reasons they should not be, because that's a real pet peeve of mine. But I'm excited about this, and I know the council is too, but specifically Councilmember Joyner is probably like doing cartwheels in his head right now. So, yeah,
I am, but very cautiously because we've been in similar positions
yeah.
in the past. But, so I think what I'll say, and Ed kind of touched on it, sometimes the right people come together at the right time. And
Exactly right.
I've been focused on this since before I was on the council, well over 15 years ago, trying to drive that airport to become not just the diamond in the rough that we all talk about, but the diamond of South Placer County. We, as a city council, as a city, we have to do an inventory of what our assets are. What do we have that nobody else has? And that airport is one of the few things that we have that no one else has. And it really does serve the entire South County. We've made several attempts in the past to push something forward, and the right mix of people has just simply not been in the room. And I'm thrilled to see that they're all coming together now. I don't know that dirt is even going to be moving before I'm off the council, but I'm going to be watching awfully close as this project comes along, and hopefully many more after this. I first flew into Lincoln Airport as a student pilot when I was 17 years old from the old Phoenix Field, which no longer exists, and landed on the west side back when that was still active and the triangle was still active. And from 3 miles out, it was a really cool airport. And I hadn't seen anything like it. I flew into Rancho Murrieta, soloed down there, which was nice and wide and nice and long for a student pilot, but it was always Lincoln. It was the cool one that I wanted to fly into again. And so you're absolutely right. This is exciting, I think, for all of us. I pray there are more projects right behind. And that's in the short term. On the long term, we've got the entire west side of the airport that is an incredible asset for us, potentially to bring in significant aviation-related businesses within that air park. So I'm excited about all of this. And Ed, so I'm apparently a little choked up. I'm thankful that your vision can align with our vision and that we can drive this forward for the entire community. I'll stop there.
So I'm really glad that Sean talked a little bit about the train and the noise that the train has, because when I first moved to Lincoln, I was pretty close to the train noise, and it was pretty annoying, but it wasn't. I only lived in that spot for like 3 months, and it wasn't like 2 or 3 weeks goes by and I'm sleeping soundly, and even with the train noise, you know, and if I didn't hear it at night, I would thought something was wrong, you know. But as far as the airport goes, it is a concern with the noise. I get that. As a young boy, we lived right at the end of the airstrip for Hill Air Force Base in Layton, Utah, and we had jets all day long with their pilots doing their circles, and it was pretty annoying. But at some point, you get used to that too. And I actually have one of my best friends lives off of Rockwell Lane, and I've been out to his place many times, and you know the plane's taken off, and you just wait for 30 seconds, minute, or whatever, and they're gone. You continue your conversation. So annoying, but I get it. And you don't have to convince me about the airport. I know what an asset that is and give whatever help I can.
So I'll just add this. My wife and I also live in the flight path of the airport. I suppose I'm one of those aviation geeks a little bit, and my wife's family actually has a grass runway on their ranch. So she's known aviation since she was able to crawl up into an old Piper Cub. We actually, when we hear an aircraft engine that we don't recognize, we can both be in a different area of the house. We both run to the backyard to see what that airplane is. So I guess we're lucky in that we love having that be a part of our life. And I think for a lot of people, even if you're not used to it, you're going to become used to it and then you're going to love it. So.
Well, and to your point, and this is the last thing I'll say too, when people talk about the train, the airport, even the logging trucks, which I know we want to get out the main, but even the logging trucks, they're annoyed by it. What I tell people is you move to Lincoln for a specific reason. And for me, and I know it's not for everybody, but for me, those airplane sounds, that train, that's home. That is home. And that's what, yeah, you might think the noise is annoying. Well, like, yeah, the logging trucks, I know it's an issue, but and again, I don't mean to be overly sentimental, but that's what makes us who we are. And so that's.
One more thought, if I may, very quickly. We redesigned the city seal and we added an aircraft to represent aviation and that airport for a reason. That is one of the economic drivers of this community, along with agriculture, along with industry.
You have anything to say, Bill? Okay. I started getting involved in the city as a resident in the 2007 timeframe. Because of my background, I got assigned to a bunch of financial sustainability type of committees. Until this year, you also have to know two of my compadres, two of my friends, two of the people I admire and like working with, Paul being one, Richard being the other, are ex-pilots. Richard is an ex-tree pilot. You need to talk to him about that sometime. They've always told me about the diamond in the rough. Well, it was a pain in my side until this year. Because of a whole myriad set of factors, one of which was thinking that you could make it on hangar rental and maintain it at the same time. Yeah. The other was staff that was not interested in doing anything except trying to keep the rest of the city running. But I had heard, and we came up with plans on the Economic Development Committee when I was on that, how to save it, how to save the airport. No fruition there. Was on the airport committee on and off since it started out as two city council people and was really an ops, monthly ops dump. Then it went to a committee including pilots and residents and so on. That time I've been on and off that committee since it's that inception. We have a committee that has the exact right mix of professional people. Professional not only in the sense of aviation, but professional in the way they look at things. I finally see that diamond coming out of the rough. And that's the first time in the 18 years that I felt that it really can be, we can make use of the asset. It's always been an asset, but actually an asset that you don't make use of is a liability. And so it's been somewhat of a liability to the city. And this is just the first baby step. But when I see the enthusiasm and the excitement being generated, I'm just, I really, really feel good. And I don't think you would ever hear me say that before, about the airport.
Did I feel good about it? Well, I've said it a number of times, but this time it looks like we're going to get where we need to be.
So, any comments by the two people that are on?
Nobody on Zoom?
No one on Zoom.
You've already made your.
I think,
Come up to
I think
Yeah,
Sean
so
answered
You
that.
have, you've spoken on this item already, correct? What she said.
Well, I'll answer it again. The very specific answer is roughly 240 hangars exist currently, plus another 62 after that. So it will be at 302 hangars roughly.
25% increase in the number
Yep.
of planes.
Right.
Housed.
Yep.
Inside,
Yep.
not necessarily additional planes.
Correct. Yep. A lot of those, so yeah, final point, then I'll stop talking about that part. But remember that there are not even dozens. I'd have to look to my airport people out there, but there are lots of planes that are on tie downs, which is just out on asphalt. And what I've learned through learning about airports is that if you have a very expensive piece of equipment like an airplane, you don't, like anything, you don't want it sitting out in the elements all day long because it's very expensive to repair and of course it wears down. And so many of them are motivated to have a home for their airplane.
Okay. So.
Can I move?
that's where-
Oh, I'd
ready
like
for
to
a
move
motion.
if you don't mind.
Oh, go ahead.
May
I'll let you.
I? All right. I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 2024-037, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement for airport hangar development of aircraft storage hangars and executive hangars of Lincoln LLC, a veteran-owned and operated company.
And I would like to wholeheartedly second it. I don't know if I can, but I did.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. That's right. Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
Mayor Carlskint,
Yes.
Councilmember Andriotta.
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
And Councilmember Lauritsen.
Yes.
You have no idea what a victory that is to bring Dan over.
Yes. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Next item on the agenda is item 10B.
I know.
A presentation by Ada Racker on the biennial budget amendment midstream adjustments.
Good evening. So this is my last time at the podium tonight, I promise. As the mayor alluded to, this is the biennium budget adjustments. So just as a quick reminder, the city adopted a biennium budget for this budget period. It is the budget for 2023 to 2025. And so normally we would be bringing you mid-year adjustments, but because we're only 6 months into our 24-month journey, we're just calling it the biennium budget adjustment. All right. I do have a pretty extensive report for you with detailed schedules that I promised I am not going to go through line by line. We'll just hit some of the highlights for you. Some of the more important things to note is that property taxes came in higher than we anticipated. However, we do have more general fund expenses than we had originally budgeted for, and so we are having a net effect to the general fund of an increase in use of fund balance of about $500,000. The general fund can definitely support that use. Some of it is for one-time expenses, some of it is for ongoing expenses. Sean Scully and I have discussed the ongoing expenses, and so we'll be looking into those further to see if they need to be addressed in a future operational needs. But for now, just looking for these budget adjustments so we can continue to pay those bills and spend those funds. Other than that, I don't really have any exciting things to point out to you, but I am happy to take any questions if you have them.
Are there any questions? Council.
No, so as Ben was alluding to before, oftentimes we don't have questions when it seems like we ought to, and it's because we've done the homework, we've gone through the documents, we've asked the questions. And so once we get here, this is a relative formality for us.
And I'll say that is staff's goal, that if the finance staff is doing their job in a way that is supportive of this council and this city, that we are providing that amount of information and update to the council through these presentations and through the detailed documents that are attached to this. My goal every single time I bring something forward is to answer all your questions in advance through the documents that are provided and publicly available. And so if you have no questions, we've done our job. I do want to give a big shout out to say that this budget adjustment is thanks to countless hours of work and dedication of our finance manager, Ruth Ann Codina, assisted by our budget analyst, Prashil Kashev. And it is no small feat to bring this document forward and to have all of these changes completed. So I really appreciate all of their efforts.
So I do have one question, just a curiosity. How's the 2-year budget cycle working?
I think it's working well for this council and for staff. From finance's perspective, it's almost the same level of work as a regular budget. Probably the one little bit of work savings is around the end of the fiscal year. So typically in an annual budget, we would bring to you a budget before the end of June, and then we would bring to you an amended budget before the end of September, which would allow us to take a look at the final property taxes and do any little final adjustments. But because we're doing a biennium period, we won't do that first step. So you won't see us again likely until September. And because of that, so we get to skip one step only. But for finance, it's almost the same, almost the same level of effort.
But I think like what I'd add to that is that the efficiencies that are created in a 2-year budget is not necessarily just a lot less work for accounting staff. It's roughly the same. But it is much more useful from a financial planning perspective of not always living on a year-to-year basis. Like one of the things I always laugh about when like new city managers, when they come on, they're always very excited if they're able to have a first-year balanced budget. It's super exciting. But when you balance at the beginning of the year, it means literally nothing because you don't know what's going to happen over the next 12 months with revenues or expenditures. So it's really more about how you end the year than it is how you begin it. And when you have a 2-year cycle, it gives you the ability to plan out some of these projects that the cities are always working on that are really expensive, that span 12, 18, 24, 36 months in some cases. And so you don't have to do it in these segmented ways. You can be a little bit more strategic about your employing your dollars. And I think the other benefit is with quarterly updates, we hope that by the end of a 2-year period, what we projected in the beginning and have amended a few times before you get to the end of your 2 years looks really close to what we had originally thought it was. And it's much more difficult to do when you only get one bite of the apple at a mid-year adjustment.
Well, one of the other things is that it would not be possible really to do a good 2-year budget if we weren't in as good a shape from an accounting standpoint as we are. 7, remember that number, 7 changes. So we're starting with much better data in July. Okay, it's much more accurate.
Mm-hmm.
And so you really don't have the need to go back and correct everything.
Yeah, it's definitely a full package, you know, the solidness, for lack of a better word, of the financial records definitely plays a part in the ability to provide an accurate and relevant budget document.
Yeah, you couldn't do it without this kind of staff.
Correct.
Second thing is, we ought to be able somehow to get through to the point where we only do a 2-year audit. So we only close the books every 2 years.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen.
I apologize, but the government code does not permit that.
Nice try, though.
Nice try. Okay, any other questions?
No, thank you, Nita. Really appreciate your and your staff's hard work again.
Thank you.
I only wanted to add too that because of the way that the audit went and how prepped, like Paul Joyner had said, that you help us become and how clear it is. Just because we don't have any questions doesn't mean you haven't done your homework to help us know where we're at and what we need to work on and where we're at
Yeah.
going forward. So,
Exactly.
thank you.
And Mayor, if I may, one thing that Nita didn't mention, I think because of post-traumatic stress disorder, is that she didn't address our enterprise utility funds. They're in your document, but
Oh,
I want to just point out, because I think it's really important, the painful process that the whole community went through and sort of coming to terms with what we needed to do to adjust utility rates has been borne. The projections that we had for how it would address sure bankruptcy of those funds has cured that problem almost exactly how it was projected to cure it. And you can't ever really know that because utility billing is a bit fluid, literally and non-literally. You know, because some of it's based on usage, a lot of it's based on tenancy and growth and lack of growth. And so, but what you will see if you dive into the document a little bit is that the refuse garbage fund, the sewer and wastewater fund, and in short order, the water fund are now in not super healthy positions, but they're in respectable positions where major adjustments in the future will be unnecessary. And so I just think it's worth mentioning, even though it was a difficult lift.
Sean is correct. I now have a permanent twitch in my eye as a result of the rate process. But he is also correct in saying, so I'll throw out one number that I have stuck in my head because it's just so astounding to me. When we adopted the original budget, we were projecting a negative fund balance for the water fund of $3.9 million. So $3.9 million in the red that would have had to have been covered by the general fund or turned over to the state as a bankrupt entity. But with the rate increases, we are now projecting a deficit of around $120,000. And it's likely that that deficit won't exist by the time we get to the end of fiscal year 23-24. But that's what it's looking like at the moment. But just that dramatic shift by adopting rates that pay for the bills that we have currently.
Thank you for that.
And with respect to what you went through with that and you, Sean, the entire team, the fact that you felt confident enough to bring that to the council. In the past, staff knew about the issues and did not raise the issues, did not bring them to the council for fear of how that would have gone. You did the right thing. You helped us do the right thing moving forward. So I think we're all very appreciative. But Sean is right. It was hard for each and every one of us, and it's hard for our community.
Yes.
As well. But I think we're going to be in a better place as a result of that.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate that hardship to our customers. And, you know, we talk about that as a team. We talk about with our customers all the time. And so, you know, many of us who work for the city live in the city. You know, we have people in this room. If I had to guess that there's probably a third of us in this room who work and live in the city limits and feel that pain in our pocketbook, not just the members and the dais, as every one of you lives here, but of our staff members. And so we knew it was going to be a personal hit to all of us, right? Not just, well, we got to do this because it's the right thing, but we knew we had to do it and it was going to be painful.
Thank you. No, that's it.
Any questions from the audience? Comments? Yes?
So aren't we projected to have another rate increase for the utilities?
It's a very good question, and I'm very glad you asked it. So utilities should have scheduled increases every year. So this first year, the increases that occurred were the big heavy lift to get to right-size them, to keep the funds out of bankruptcy, to ensure we didn't have to raid the general fund to pay for the operational expenses, because raiding the general fund really means laying off police officers and firefighters. That's just the reality of it. But every single year, there should be an increase. But after this big increase, the increases are going to be normal. They're going to be 5% for scheduled out for the next 4 years in the water fund. We have committed to come back each year before we enact the new rates, provide a report of the revenues received, of the expenses, of the rates, the new rates that would be put into place, which have already been approved, but to get ratification of that amount before it goes live.
Great question.
Okay. No further questions?
No hands are raised online.
Okay. Bring it back up to the dais.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2024-038, approving the biennium budget amendments.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Thank you. Councilmember Joyner?
Yes.
Councilmember Andriotta?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen?
Yes.
And Mayor Carlskent?
Yes. Next item on the agenda, 10C, is to receive a report of the utilization of our funds received from the ARPA federal program.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is actually going to be, I think, a complex discussion. We like to try to package things up in a nice little bow when we can. But this is, as you all know up on the dais, most of the time that you're voting on items, your vote, and especially if they're finance related, almost all of our funds are restricted in some form or fashion. Even those in the general fund, which you have widespread authority to use, they have already suitors that have claimed them. And so when the city and, well, all cities in America received dollars out of the American Recovery Plan Act, Lincoln, as you may recall, chose to take a lost revenue item, which created essentially a standard allowance of $10 million, one-time money. I say this to folks in the community that I speak about this all the time. This will never happen again, likely. Well, let's hope not, because it came as a result of the pandemic.
Came at a high price.
And right around the time actually that I started with the city, the council had a serious discussions about how they wanted to employ these dollars, just understanding that they were unique and they were one time. And so let's try to find unique one-time uses for them versus put them into programs that we already have a responsibility to do. And so just to run you through a couple of items that the council set aside, council started off with public safety being a super high priority, and how can we use one-time dollars to bolster our public safety within Lincoln? So you may recall that the council created a really unique program that allowed us to move from having 2 firefighters per station on shift 24 hours a day to close to 3 in most cases at every station. There's a variety of reasons for that unless you ask me to, I won't go into, but 3-0 staffing is a very important threshold in the fire industry for a variety of safety reasons. And so for the first time since Lincoln's Fire Department was formed 20 some odd years ago, Lincoln was and is now in a position to be staffed. It's at a minimum level, but it's an appropriate minimum level. We have never created any formalized policy about what our minimum staffing is because we know that that we need to make a number of other things happen to retain the 9 new firefighters that we have on board. And as you know, there's a variety of things we're working on to that end. But roughly $5 million went towards fire and police services that were staffing related items. And they allowed us to make sure that we have updated labor agreements with our public safety unions, as well as appropriate staffing to serve the community. So in addition to that, council decided of the $10 million to set aside 20% or $2 million to go towards support to the business and nonprofit communities. And you split that into essentially 3 buckets. The first and largest bucket was a direct business assistance program to Lincoln businesses. And we partnered with the chamber and did a pretty significant grant program and funded a variety of businesses in Lincoln. Most of those awards were very successful. In fact, I think we shared at the time that it saved some businesses that were going to close and had just enough money for them to renew leases and continue in operation. In addition to that, we did a nonprofit grant program administered by our friends back there at the Lincoln Community Foundation. And we were able to get most, if not all of the not all, but most of the nonprofits that serve or are in Lincoln grant funds to continue the good work that they're doing. You have to imagine that a lot of these nonprofits weren't able to generate anything during COVID. It's very hard to fundraise when you can't communicate or interact with individuals. And so it helped fill that gap and allow them to continue the good work they do of serving our community. Finally, the council established with the remaining dollars a mental health assistance program, and we received proposals from 2 local providers, Kids First and the Lighthouse, and funded both of those agencies to provide direct counseling and therapy support to Lincoln residents that the council at the time was very concerned about sort of the burgeoning mental health problems that every community was experiencing. And so those dollars have gone to those specific uses. And in fact, some of our providers are here tonight, probably can speak to that a little bit. So those efforts have all been completed or are in process of being completed. And so the question that we had is we have roughly $3 million remaining of unrestricted funds that the council has widespread authority to allocate however you'd like. In addition, you have $1.5 million of restricted dollars that can be used for only specific kinds of purposes, which we've discussed many times in this meeting, and I can go through if you'd like. We've given you in your staff report a variety of ideas on how you might like to allocate those dollars. In addition, some of our local nonprofits and our mental health providers have since raised additional needs that they'd like at least the council to discuss and consider as you decide how you want to allocate the dollars moving forward. In addition, we probably will bring back this item a few times if necessary to set the plan exactly the way you want it. Because another fun fact that Anita dug up just yesterday was that your restricted dollars need to be obligated by the end of this year, this calendar year. The remaining, all the rest of the dollars, I think we have through 26 to spend. So there's more time on your standard allowance dollars, but your restricted dollars, we do need to move on that.
To spend or to
Spent, no, I believe it's spent. You have to have it spent by the end of 26, right, Nina? Not obligated.
There's a hell of a lot of difference.
I think you're correct, but I will confirm that.
I'm almost positive it needs to be spent by the end of 26.
Well, I believe you're correct, but I will definitely confirm that.
So, it seems like a long time. It's not really. It'll be a blink of an eye. So let me just go through some of the requests, and then I'm just going to listen, and we will try to form it into some kind of plan. What I would suggest, though, as you start to talk, is talk in percentages, if you can, in each of the buckets. Dollar figures are more difficult in some ways because we want to make sure that each and every last dollar that eventually will evaporate into the ether is committed, so that we're not sending one penny back to the federal government, if possible.
Sean, really quickly, before you do that,
Yeah.
could I ask you, I know you said you've gone through it many times, but could you remind me what we can spend the restricted money on before you go through the ideas?
Sure. So anything homeless or housing related is approved per the federal government. Anything water, wastewater related, so infrastructure projects, system enhancements. Now, look, I've said this a few times, but a water or sewer project at $1.5 million is gone in 5 seconds. Those are all very expensive projects, and so that would be very easy to commit those. There's a series of other categories that are allowable, but generally you kind of want to stick to infrastructure projects or something that's housing/homeless related. Beyond that, we want to make sure that whatever you're committing is well within the guidelines, because we're just not in favor of riding the fence there. Because if the federal government decides into an audit, which they will audit, that we used it on some sort of purpose, even if it's a good purpose, and it's not part of the legislation, we will end up paying for that and sending them the difference. So here, I'll go through some examples of a variety of projects on, you could use either unrestricted or restricted funds for. So we talked about infrastructure, storm drain repairs. That's a need we have. Some cities have a little storm drain fee on your utility fund. That's not something that Lincoln has. So we fund all of our storm projects either out of general fund or development fees. Wastewater, same issue, except for more aging infrastructure. Anything that you put into a utility like wastewater or water is of benefit to the entire community because it comes off of what otherwise the ratepayers would bear the burden of. One of the interesting things that is part of the restricted fund package is broadband and related broadband upgrades. So one of the things we've heard recently from community members is that a lot of the old copper lines that are landline phones, those are being eliminated, and customers are being forced to move to voice over IP, or basically internet phones. And it's more expensive generally for that service. And so one of the ideas was, for some of our senior citizens that perhaps, operate mostly off of a landline, that perhaps there's a cell phone program that we could put together that would fund folks that maybe are in a position of losing their landlines. The other idea is that we came up with was a fiber master plan to install fiber equipment throughout the city, which would improve internet access and coverage. A lot of cities have gotten into the internet providing business. I don't know if that's something that we necessarily want to get into, but perhaps for public facilities, parks, et cetera, you could have super high speed internet or business areas that, really need that service. In terms of unrestricted funds, we always have needs in our parks, whether it be new infrastructure, whether it be new amenities and play structures, whether it be artistic installations that add to the value of the community that we don't otherwise really collect dollars for. That's one other idea. And then I think I would like to just suggest a few that have been raised by some of our nonprofit and mental health partners. I'm going to allow, I'd like to ask that the council allow some of our partners to get up and explain to you a little bit about the monumental shift that has occurred in billing for mental health services through the county and through the state, and an awkward position that it puts the community and those businesses in. And both Kids First and Lighthouse have asked, and it's included in your report, that the council consider allocating additional resources towards the mental health program so that they can continue to do the good work that, absent that funding, may be severed or is severed with a state level policy decision. And the second part was in just working an awful lot with the Lincoln Community Foundation on nonprofit grants, learning a lot more about the services they provide. I think what I'll do, just for the community to understand, if you don't know what the Lincoln Community Foundation is, it was a nonprofit that was established, Chris, 24 years ago. 20 years ago. And it was designed and has always operated as essentially a nonprofit that supports other nonprofits. So you want to start a small nonprofit, let's call it a great example is always the Sober Grad nonprofit, right? It's usually put together by a group of well-meaning parents and potentially some faculty. And then, of course, your kids grow up and they move off to college and you're no longer involved in the nonprofit board and you hope somebody new comes on board to take it over. And sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes their taxes aren't filed on time. Sometimes you may just want to start a new nonprofit to serve the community and you don't even know where to start. You have to get 501c3 approval. You have to learn how to form a board and make it legal. And how do you fundraise in a way that's legal and ethical? Lincoln Community Foundation helps you do all of those things as a service to the community and have helped start many nonprofits and helped pull many nonprofits out of disorder over the years. And the city allocated $500,000 as an endowment 20 years ago to the Lincoln Community Foundation. They have been faithful stewards of those dollars for 20 years. They still have that original $500,000 balance, and they use those dollars in the marketplace. And let's say they generate, would we say, Jen, 10% per year roughly, which is pretty darn good return, really. Oh, apologies, 200,000. And they use what they get every year on supporting nonprofits, donating to nonprofits, et cetera. And so they have, there's a whole list of things that they've done over that time period that have added, including assisting Chief Alves and company over there in the establishment of the Lincoln Public Safety Foundation. They have Chris's sales pitch, which I'm going to let him make, but I'm going to just sum it up for you, is that this nonprofit was established at a time when Lincoln was a very different community in terms of size. And it has now grown, the city has grown significantly since 2004. And so the needs and pressure that's on the Lincoln Community Foundation to provide that same service just for many, many more nonprofits now has increased. And so they would like the city council to consider an additional endowment so that they can grow their organization and continue to provide more services moving forward. So those are the two very kind of specific and surgical requests that we've received from a nonprofit community. And beyond that, the world is sort of the city council's oyster, at least as it relates to the standard allowance. And I just wanted to start the conversation off that way.
A question on the infrastructure, or the limited fund.
Mm-hmm.
Can you use that here's my question. For instance, the cell phone thing, not just that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I know you could use the money to buy the cell phone. And use the money to buy some cell phones and establish a fund that you could draw from for the next 10 years? Yeah.
I'm going to have to, I understand what you're saying, and I think I have to punt that question because I don't know the answer to it.
Yeah, I hate it when you make me say no in a public meeting. So
I would guess not.
yeah, no, the funds, and I did confirm that the restricted funds have to be expended by December 31st, 2026. And like Sean indicated, we have to obligate them by December 31st, 2024. So we have to identify a project for those funds or projects and get a budget adjustment to say we are expending this money in this way. So you couldn't create a fund to support a future cell phone program that lasts past 2026.
You could.
You could not. You could not.
So you could buy the,
You could,
the phone and.
you could buy the
infrastructure,
phones.
And then they're responsible for the monthly bill and all that. Okay.
And if Jen Brown, who's sort of lead on this as our tech person.
So there is a digital inclusion program available through Verizon, and it's a subsidized program. So we could purchase the phone, give the phone, and then people would pay only about $10 to $15 a month for the phone service, depending on what kind of phone they got.
I just like the fiber idea. It's a great idea. But I can't envision us having the funding to implement the plan in the next 20 years in the city. Too many other needs. It's one-time money. Anyway.
So to run down that possible path for a moment, there are federal broadband dollars available. Programs out there already in existence that we haven't applied to. Can we use a portion of these funds, perhaps as a match, to draw down some of those funds?
You can't use it as match.
You can't, that is one rule. You
That's
can't
one
match
rule.
federal dollars with federal dollars. But if you created a fiber, let's say you created a fiber master plan and you knew some sort of great project that could work here, it is correct that you're much more likely to achieve funding if you actually have something that's been pre-thought out and you can show your granting agency, look, we didn't just come up with this yesterday over drinks. We've literally costed and verified that this is a project that will work. And they tend to like to fund projects that they know actually get built versus otherwise. And Jen, I don't know if you want to add to that.
So for the fiber master plan would be what you would need to start with. It would also include any future development. So as part of new development going in, they would be putting in the fiber for us to take over. And then you can then lease to existing ISPs parts of the fiber, right? So then you become like a leasee of that fiber. And it's a win-win for residents because it provides, you don't just have one internet provider within the city. Now they have options. The other piece of that is cell. So Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, they want fiber backhauls, right? So if you have fiber in the ground running to our streetlights, they can then mount their cell modems and we can charge them for that time, and they will pay a lot for that, for a monthly rate, because they have that fiber backhaul and power.
So that type of project, the fiber master plan and running fiber to streetlights would definitely be an eligible project under the restricted dollars.
I think we're going to need more conversation.
Definitely. But that is you wanted things split out into buckets. That's a nice bucket.
Yep.
You say there are some people prepared to speak.
Yeah, so if it's okay, Mayor, perhaps we can start with, we have Debbie from Kids First here. Is Gary? Oh, Gary's back there. Do you guys not like to sit next to each other? What's up with that? Oh, okay, all right. I'd like to invite, honestly, I think you need to hear from both of them because this is actually not even, it is related to this item, but it's something of kind of greater concern that not a lot of people are tracking. And so Gary and Debbie, if you wouldn't mind.
I do have 3-minute presentation, but I'm assuming this is not it. It's more so just trying to bring everybody up to speed of what's happening
Yeah.
in the middle.
You're my co-presenter, so please go ahead. Yeah.
And Cal-Aim.
Grab yourself a microphone if you would.
Oh, I'm sorry. Gary McDonald, Executive Director of Lighthouse Counseling and Family Resource Center. I can only speak to the 8.5 years that I've been at Lighthouse, and I'll be there 9 years in May. And we've done really well over the years. We've greatly expanded. The pandemic, we opened up 3 additional offices. And for the last several years, the county, when Jeff Brown was still the Director of Health and Human Services before he retired, Dr. Oldham is now the director. Jeff Brown used to say, well, we need to get the nonprofits, the mental health nonprofits, signed up for Medi-Cal so we can bill Medi-Cal as much as we possibly can because it augments the Mental Health Services Act money that's available to the nonprofits. So we knew that this was coming down the pike, and we jumped on that. Lighthouse jumped on that, and we applied to become Medi-Cal certified directly from the Department of Healthcare Services. Other nonprofits had tried that in Placer County, and they were all denied. We were denied, and then we didn't like that, their answer or their rationale for denying us. So we hired an attorney that was specialized in Medi-Cal, and she worked with them for about a year, came back to us and said, resubmit. We did, and we were turned down again. I called her up and said, what's going on? She said, I thought I had worked it out. She called California Department of Healthcare Services, and they found out there's a new attorney. They rescinded the second denial, and then we did get Medi-Cal certified. It took us about 2 years, maybe a little bit more, and we spent thousands of dollars with the attorney. We were the first Medi-Cal certified nonprofit in Placer County, so we were very proud of that. So then we went to the county, and then the county said, that's great, Gary, we didn't think you could do that. Jeff Brown himself said, I don't think you can do it, but I was surprised, and he was pleased. So he said, now we need to get you Medi-Cal certified with the county. So and I'm not a Medi-Cal expert, so this is all new to me. And only within the last couple of years have I even begun to understand a little bit about what's going on in the state and in Medi-Cal. In my opinion, and this is just an opinion, that Gavin Newsom's going to run for president in 4 years, and he's doing a little bit of a money grab. Again, this is just my opinion. He's grabbing the Mental Health Services Act money and other monies so that he's throwing it at homelessness and the drug problem that is on the streets, because it's hard to run for president if homelessness increased 30 to 40% while you've been in office. So we're going to the county and say, we know that Cal-AIM is coming. Cal-AIM stands for California Advancing and Innovating Medi-Cal, which basically is a shakeup. It's an earthquake in the funding system for the state. And the county didn't even know what was going on. So we're going to the county and go, what does that mean for us? And so every month we're getting closer. What does this mean for us? What is going to change? And then July 1st came of this fiscal year, and we didn't even have our contracts yet. So we're going like, how do we even pay our people if we don't have contracts? We eventually got the contracts. We wound up losing $600,000 of our most flexible money, the Mental Health Services Act money. And so $600,000 is a huge hole for us. And so we went back to the county and said, how are you going to help us? And they said, well, bill Medi-Cal. So I said, okay, great. So we have to change our whole billing system. We have to double our productivity levels, which means we have to see twice the clients. So we forced our clinicians to work evenings and weekends, which is fine. But then we've got the FRC side. And so we were told that we're supposed to try to bill enhanced care management, community peer specialists, community supports, and there's a whole list of services that can be provided under the new Medi-Cal, Cal-AIM scenario. But we were not given advance notice. This happened very quickly. In terms of us, again, we're not experts, and I've been there for 8.5 years, and I didn't know much about Medicare, or Medi-Cal rather, and I'm still learning. And we hired a consultant just to stay afloat, to figure out how do we do this, because I don't have the knowledge. So we hired a consultant, and he's trying to help us figure this out. So we've got this huge hole, And we have lost, in the first 6 months of this fiscal year, we've lost roughly $350,000. Now, in the first 8 years I've been there, we've never lost money. I mean, there've been some years we made $8 or $1,000, but this year we've lost $350,000. So I'm concerned about the future. We're pivoting as quickly as possible, and I know you are too because we work together. And then on top of the shakeup with Medi-Cal, then the county decided they want to change Medi-Cal managed care providers. So HealthNet, California Health and Wellness, is out, and so is Anthem Blue Cross. And then they brought in Partnership, and Partnership expanded by 8 counties. They're in like 30, 40 counties, or maybe less. But anyway, this is their largest expansion that they've ever had. So you've got Partnership, who hasn't even hired the representative for Placer County yet. So we're dealing with people that are overwhelmed, trying to get answer from them. How do we bill Medi-Cal managed care, Medi-Cal, which is mild to moderate mentally ill? So we are working through that. There's a lot of nonprofits. There's Insights Counseling they're pretty much shrinking their nonprofit. They're opening up a for-profit nonprofit just so they can stay in business, because that's how they can figure out Medi-Cal. I'm concerned about our future. If we didn't adjust, if we didn't pivot quickly, we would be out of business in September. This coming September, Lighthouse would close because we were losing $100,000 a month because of all the changes, and we were not given at much advance notice. And again, I'm not blaming the county, but the county didn't have answers as well. So we're playing catch up. Kids First is playing catch up. There are 400, I was told by our consultant, there's 4, who knows, because he consults for the state. He said there's over 400 nonprofits that are struggling to stay in business because of all the changes. So again, I'm not a Medi-Cal expert, but there was an earthquake that happened in California, and it was in the mental health field, and it had everything to do with Cal AIM and what I believe is the future of our governor. And he's shaking things up and trying to get matches from the feds with Medi-Cal. I don't know if you can add to that. but
I
that's
do.
fine.
Gary's great with the statistics and he can give you all the fact parts. I'm going to give you the people. So what we've seen, I'm a lot newer in this field. I've only been to Kids First for a year and watched the changes that have occurred. But really what happened with MHSA, from my perspective, coming in and really learning it, was the state as a whole had, here was the criteria for you to receive these funds. You needed to have no insurance and or your insurance it wouldn't cover the mental health services that you needed. And then we went through contracts, like Gary said, and when the numbers came out and they gave us both the same numbers that we had had in the past, we knew there'd be some shifts, but nothing new. July 1 came and it was, now the Smiths no longer qualified because they have managed care Kaiser or managed care Blue Cross, whatever it was, and so we couldn't serve them anymore. My concern came from not just billing, because that is definitely a concern. What do we do with these people? Who helps them now? Because we've got lines of people waiting to have service done. They're on 6 to 9 to 12 months waiting at their managed care because they can't serve them. There's nothing to give them. So they're on the streets. And this is what affects our community. So the reason these people came to Placer County, Lincoln, Roseville, Rockland is because of what we offer. If we can't take care of what's out on the streets, it's definitely going to affect the businesses and the communities that our children live in. And that's what my biggest concern is. Right now, we have, the lists are growing because we have to make them wait until we can get Medi-Cal to get back get back up and moving with partners. We both had to reapply to the whole system. So it's waiting for that process to happen. We can't bill that, which means we can't see these people who need service. And unless they're telling us it's critical, and my question was, what's critical to you? What do you consider critical? How destitute does someone need to be? What are we waiting until we have a line of children out there that are going to commit suicide because we couldn't give them services because you didn't think that was critical enough? And that's where we are. We're at that level now of what's next. How do we decide whose life is worth it and whose life isn't. And all we want to do is make sure that our folks are, that we're serving the community as a whole. We know that this will mean hundreds and hundreds of people going without services in every single city in Placer County. And that's what's the most concerning to both of us. We are 90% of the mental health services, especially for the youth and teen percentages that are out there. So without us, if we're gone, then what? Then what do we do in the communities? So we do know, which is something we talked to Sean about when we came through, is we know this is a one-time shot. We came to you at the initial, we asked for a help at the start when we were seeing some of the issues come up. But now what? And he asked us, what do you think is the solution? How do you think, how are we going to stop the issue? Well, there isn't. It's not going to stop. The state is not going to bring money back. But we do need to think outside the box and how we can come together with elected officials, corporations, what have you. I think there's definitely room for innovation, but what we're asking for is help to stay the disparaging gap that's there of what we're going to have, what we're getting from, to be able to help these people and serving them, and then moving forward to how we fix the problem. So coming together with all of you and maybe the cities of Lincoln, or sorry, Rockland and Roseville and Auburn to say, how can we collectively work on this problem together with some of the corporations in town and come up with another way to fund it?
I did want to add quickly that we are pivoting very quickly. Again, we did hire a consultant. There's a laundry list of new programs that are available, but you've got to hire the people in advance of billing it. Then you've got to get them trained. We don't even know how to get them trained. The county doesn't know how to get them trained. So we're just asking for gap funding so we can stay in business and we can rebuild and restructure ourselves, which we're definitely doing. And for example, we're being very creative as well. We just entered into a contract memorandum of understanding with the Roseville City School District. We are providing counselors inside the schools. That we've never done before to the degree that we're doing now. We're very pleased with that. And we're also talking to the Rockland School District as well. So we are adapting very quickly, but we were not given much notice, and this was rolled out very quickly, and it caught us by surprise along with the county and everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you have any
Thank you.
questions or?
Yeah.
We'll just
whole
hang out
lot
for a
of it.
second.
I think we need,
I think it would be very wise if we set aside some time to workshop,
yep.
maybe multiple
Yeah.
workshops addressing,
And sooner rather than later. Sounds like they're in dire straits. And an editorial. I've sat through so many meetings in the last few months of the state and or the federal government pulling the rug out of people all the way from highways. The funding used to be 50%. Now it's 30%. Schools that were 50%, now less than 30%. The schools have to fund the bond because the state doesn't pay for 3 years. Now, the county pulling the rug out because of the state, but it's still county's responsibility to a large extent. I'm getting really frustrated that this all falls back to the cities and the individual. So I, that's just a rant that has been building. So I think we need to schedule a workstation.
maybe we can create a couple of those buckets that will allow you to shape at least the first workshop. So around this topic, SB 326, AB 531, supposedly bringing $6 billion plus for mental health treatment in California.
That's Prop 1. And Prop 1, and I don't remember which one is which, one of them restructures MHSA so that directs the money towards veterans, housing, severely mentally ill, and drug addiction. They're going to create, I forget if it's 10,000 beds or 100,000 beds, I don't recall, but there's 189,000 homeless people in California. And a lot of this money is going to go to Los Angeles because that is the largest city with the largest population. And very little will wind up coming to the smaller locations, but like cities like Lincoln. What's happening, again, because I believe that there is an incentive for the governor to direct as much money as he can towards the severely mentally ill and the drug addicted. Now, with Care Court starts January 1, you're probably familiar with that. The judges can sentence people to facilities if they're severely mentally ill. So we're headed in the right direction, but I'm afraid it's not enough. That 10,000 beds, even if it's 100,000 beds, and forgive me for not remembering, I put in some long days. The number of beds that they're thinking about creating, some of it's housing and some of it is for severely mentally ill and drug addicted people, but it's not nearly enough. It's a step in the right direction. But what they're taking from is the people that are the average person who is struggling with maybe their relationship with their significant other. They're struggling with their teenager. Their teenagers depressed. Those are the people that we used to see. And now the funding for that is gone. And now we're being told the money is dealing with the severely mentally ill. So we are partnering with ASOC, which is Adult System of Care. Generally, we only worked with CSOC, which is Children's System of Care. So we were getting a lot of children that were depressed. Last year, we lost one of the children that was on our wait list. That 11-year-old took his own life. And since then, we've lost another child, not our child, but I talked to other nonprofits, and it was a 9-year-old little girl hung herself with her jump rope. So, and that would happen while her parents were home. And the parents had no idea that person was suicidal. When I heard that, I wept at my desk. It wasn't our client, but still, it's a child. And so we're leaving a lot of people behind. And these are the people that go to work every day and struggle. And they come home and they have a hard time making rent and they get into arguments. And so.
Well, we're getting out of the realm of prevention, which
Yes.
is what we were created for, was to prevent the issues. And now we're just triage. We're only cleaning up the mess at this point, and we've got to get back to at least doing some prevention, or generations to come this will be beyond an epidemic.
So I think for me, first of all, this is almost an overwhelming topic to try to do here tonight. I think we need a much larger time slot to really actually to prepare in advance of the conversation and have some data to work with. For instance, the county got a heck of a lot more money out of ARPA and such than we did. What are they doing to address this issue? And how much money do they have left over? And how can we engage them to jump into this?
You're right, but that's the whole point. They're not doing anything for them.
But we need to be a voice for them and for the people they represent with the county, who has $1 billion budget per year, who got much more money from the federal government on this than we did. So there's a lot of conversation to go on around this. We're not going to be able to get to it tonight, I don't think. I really appreciate you bringing this to our attention. We could throw all this money at it and it can be gone in 6 months and it doesn't solve anything. So we've got to try to find a path that makes some sense, that is within our ability to address.
Yeah.
Yep. Would it be okay, Mayor, if just since they came tonight, could we give Lincoln Community Foundations just a minute to share a little bit about their ask so that you could just have that info. And we know, I understand your direction already, but just since they're here.
Thank you both.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Chris Knutson, and I'm the president of the Lincoln Community Foundation. First of all, I'd like to thank not only this council, but previous year's councils for starting the Community Foundation and maintaining it. Like was previously mentioned, we started off in 2004 with $200,000, and the size of the city was about 6,000 or 7,000 people. And then we've grown to this size of community now. That money that was given to the foundation, to our end, we see it as we need to be good stewards of that money, and we need to enrich our community with that money. To that end, we have in our fund now, Ms. Treasurer, we have 600,000 in that fund now. So we've been very good stewards of that money. And we have taken care of our community as it has grown annually. We give grants. The Lighthouse was one of the recipients. During COVID, we took the cap off of our funds, actually. We said, if there was ever a time to use resources, this is it. And we don't want things to fail. We expended about $300,000 during that time of the funds. And the Lighthouse is a huge recipient, along with the salt mine. They were both huge recipients. So now, fast forward to now, we have grown substantially. So one side of town never existed. That 12 Bridges side of town, when we got this money, that was all just land. And now there are a lot of people over there with a lot of different needs. So enriching our community has grown to that side of town as well as this side. What we're asking for now, it's been 20 years since we've had this and we've done well with it, but we really want to take care of that side of town just as much as we are this side of town. What we're having to do now is split the money so that it takes care of both. We're getting requests all the time. Right now, because we knew that we're coming to this meeting, we've been sitting on some requests to see just how this was going to go. And we've got sober grad nights to consider. We've got every 15 minutes to consider. We've got couple of school projects to consider. And all of those are very worthy and would enrich our city entirely. On top of all this, one of the things that we've done that has really added to our city, I think, is we've put in a monthly bingo to raise funds for nonprofits that were having troubles during COVID raising funds. So every month we give a nonprofit an opportunity to raise funds. The Safety Foundation raised $50,000.
I think that was the best night ever, right?
That was amazing. And it really was a barometer of what Lincoln cares about and really wants to put their money behind. Safety was a huge night. The arts, another one, a huge night for them. So we're making the opportunities come alive for these nonprofits. We're enriching our city, and we want to continue to do that. But we'd like to increase our funds so that we're able to do that.
Can I ask a quick question? So I read your report. I didn't see a figure. Is there a certain amount you're asking for, or are you just?
That was at the top there.
Okay, I just looked again. I saw all the things you've done, all the things you want to do. Okay, hold on. Sorry if I missed.
It's $500,000.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I didn't, okay.
Okay.
I didn't see it in your part. Was it in the top part of the actual staff report?
It's one of the first bullets in the slide deck.
Oh, that's what I was referring to.
Oh,
I'm
okay, we
sorry.
don't have that. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other questions? Yep.
Oh, here we go.
This is,
Is it okay if I add something?
Jan is our treasurer and she checks on me, so.
Yeah, I know. One of the things we've been sort of thrust into lately is this whole fentanyl awareness stuff. And what the Lincoln Community Foundation actually purchased a license for a movie called Screen Agers. And we'll be showing that. We're working with the school system now to get some places to show it. And well, it's already been shown in like at Del Oro and a few other places, but we need to bring it into Lincoln since we paid for this license. And so that's another avenue that we never had to go down before. And we're all of a sudden being asked to provide for these kinds of things. We bought the TrueNarc, or we contributed towards the TrueNarc for the Lincoln Public Safety Foundation so they could buy that. And that's I don't know if you know what that is, but that's an instrument where they go out and test for some kind of a substance that's in a car or in a house or something and know right away what it is. So we've been kind of moving in that direction too, which is a direction that we never had to go in before. So with this additional money, we'll be able to do more of that kind of stuff and meet the challenges that Lincoln continues to evolve into as the city grows and more people move in and more challenges and everything else that's going on.
Thanks, Jan.
Like I said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody's looking at me.
No, I'm just,
So I'm there too. I'm going to have a lot of questions along the way. It's been 20 years. It sounds like you've built upon that endowment. I'd be really curious about how that was done and if there are other ways that we can help grow that more rapidly by reaching out to the community. It's a little morbid, but there are an awful lot of folks who may have estates that they have no one to leave it to. You can pursue those avenues to build on those endowments as well. So I assume you've done that. I don't know. But those are the types of questions that I'll be curious about. Maybe we can just get even a written report on that. That would be useful for me in exploring what we can do there. Sean will no doubt appreciate this a little bit, the history from the council side on the Community Foundation was all of these requests used to come to the council in meetings just like this, one after another after another. And the Community Foundation was endowed to redirect those requests to the Community Foundation and away from these meetings. I don't know that we've done a real good job on keeping tabs on just what load is placed upon you as the years have gone on. So it is certainly a worthy conversation to have.
If we were
Up to the microphone if you would. People at home need to hear you, Chris.
If you were so gracious as to allot us some funds, we would be willing to come quarterly to let you know how the funds have been spent and used. One of the things that I've thought of over the years is that we aren't here regularly, so you really don't know what's happening in the nonprofit world. And it would really be an asset to you if we did do some reports for you.
Mhm. I would appreciate that.
Will that,
That's my offer.
will that only happen if we give you additional funds?
Well, I think I put it that way.
Any other comments?
Yeah, well, just to say that I agree with you that the reports and the information workshopping, these things are super important to me so that I could make a better decision. I mean, I really appreciate the information and the comments that have been shared because they're incredibly important, each one of them. And it's extremely hard to even begin to, say, to me personally, decide on percentages, based on so much need, both community and nonprofit and just so many things together. So I know we have a lot to discuss to be able to give you some direction still, but even with that, hopefully we can come to some kind of a little bit of a direction for you so that we can come back and give you more specifics.
Well, I think I have enough just in terms of sort of the external requests, because I understand that, we'll have to bolster those with some more real specific details so you can get to a decision point. The point of this item was really, sometimes when we come to council for direction, I'm actually seeking elimination versus direction. So what is not on the table is easy because we could just push that away and only focus on what we think is, the valuable. That's the problem with an item like this is you're not on the non-restricted funds, you're not really bound by anything. And so we try not to presume what you might want to do with it. And so I fully expected we were going to have a number more conversations before you get to where you want to be.
Well, I would just say that in regards to Lighthouse, Kids First, and even Lincoln Community Foundation, if we're going to workshop this, we should probably do it sooner than later because they really need it. And if we are going to give it to them, let's not drag it out.
Sure, we can prioritize that.
It's not that they really need it. They need it. They have an immediate problem.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm
sure that everybody needs it.
No, I understand their immediate problem, yes. Yeah.
I really think that we need to workshop it. We need to even potentially look at the overarching allocation. The overarching allocation. Go back to the.
Yep.
That's.
And what we could do to help make the decision just slightly easier for you is that we can, just so that we're saying this in a public meeting so everybody understands, when we publish that information for you to review for your workshops, we'll make up some scenarios, and not with the assumption that you're going to prove them, but at least as a starting point of, X percentage to this and X percentage to that, which leaves you X percentage to do some more things that might be public project related, and then you can dive deeper.
There's something else I think I'd like to just put in everybody's mind as we look at where we head with this. As Sean said, these are one-time monies. This is never going to happen again in our lifetime, God willing. So what can we do with this that can address something that we would not otherwise be able to address? And I think one of those that we should at least explore is placemaking in our historic downtown. We've talked about how we can help all those downtown businesses by going forward placemaking. The Economic Development Committee is going to come forward with a recommendation that we broaden some sidewalks, that we do placemaking. So within the greater conversation, whether it's to eliminate that as a path or not, I think it's a conversation we should have as well. And the broadband conversation, I think, is a really important one as well.
Yeah, agree.
So that gives us a starting point.
Sure. If you or, and I'll just put this out to the community too, if you or anyone else has creative ideas that you think need to be explored, please just go ahead and email them or call. And we don't have all the answers. We're very interested in that feedback. And so we'll compile all of that so that, and I think in a workshop setting, we could set aside a significant period of time where you're not doing other business, where just this is your focus point. I suspect you'll get at least halfway there after the first meeting.
About what we did the first time. right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
So we received the report.
Yeah, we're not,
There's no action.
no action.
Any comments online?
No, Mayor, no hands are raised.
Okay, we'll go on to city manager reports. Other than.
Yeah, so thank you, Mayor. I, at a future meeting, am going to schedule a briefing for the city council on a critically important and to some degree concerning proposition that will be on the November ballot. And I don't want to go into it in great detail this evening because it's complex and the implications are very serious for all local governments in California as it relates to ballot measures of taxation. But I just wanted to kind of let you know that that's on the horizon, and it is not something we do not typically discuss ballot measures, unless the council wants to take formal positions on them. This one has potentially very serious implications for public safety and how we fund that service here at a local level. So if I can get all of the information compiled, I hope to have that on for your next meeting. Aside from that, I don't have a ton of significant updates that haven't already been discussed this evening, except for Chris mentioned every 15 minutes is this week. And so you'll probably be seeing things online about that. It's a pretty well-worn program at this point throughout the state. Chief will be there. A lot of his staff will be there participating. And then a certain very tall individual in this room a lanky individual in this room will be playing the part of the Reaper.
Why did this? I can't wait to see that. I'll be there with the Chaplains
Yeah.
Academy doing notifications, so that'll be fun.
I'm not sure
Fun
who-
to see you in that.
My camera.
Sort of feel like you're being typecast a little bit.
Yes.
And other than that, we have plenty of updates that are coming to you and recommendations that are coming to you from all of your committees, including in particular the Economic Development Committee, which is really flying quickly now. And so look forward to that next meeting as well. And I think unless there's anything you'd like to know, that's what I have tonight.
Thank you.
Any council initiated business?
I have none tonight.
Oh, Mayor, I do have one more thing. I just got it today. There is a scheduled remediation advisory board meeting at some point in March. I don't have a very specific date yet. And then as far as I know, I don't even know that they've notified residents whether they're on the board or not. They did reach out to me to see if they could use City Hall as a potential meeting place, which we're going to try to accommodate just depending on the numbers of people they expect to attend. And if not, we'll pivot to the pavilion or some other facility. And we'll get that information out for everybody in case you'd like to attend on the Titan 1A missile site contamination remediation advisory board.
There's no council initiated business, council committee reports.
I just have one. The Watma board has begun we're about to begin the interview process. We had closed session last week where our recruiter went through 6 possible candidates. And so we are working to find a new general manager because as I said before, The Waste Management Authority is detaching from the county, becoming their own entity, self-sufficient, however you want to word that. And so we're looking for a general manager. And so we're in the process now, and we've got interviews coming up this week, and then narrowing it down to a couple.
The public word of the rumor is that all 6 candidates are good candidates.
Yes, they're very,
They got a very
yes.
good.
They're all very different in their backgrounds and from what the recruiter says, their personalities and that sort of thing. But we agreed to interview all of them because they all are very qualified. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a couple. Very quickly, Holly and I attended the Economic Development Committee meeting, I believe on Valentine's Day.
Oh, yes, thank you. I heard about that.
The majority of that meeting was a presentation by Barry Broom with the Greater Sacramento Economic Council. Any of you who know Barry know that he can fill an hour and a half quite easily. But I think what was really important in that, he began by trying to cover building tradable sector jobs and how we might better market our airport. He also spoke about the efforts of GSEC going to Germany, trying to bring back connectivity in the job market with Bosch having relocated to Placer County now, and a lot of the semiconductor businesses taking a hard look at Placer as well, and also bringing direct international flight from Germany, probably Frankfurt, to Sac Metro for the first time. So that's what they were over there working on. But I think what was most important for the Economic Development Committee itself was just to have access to a man like Barry and be able to pick his brain, get a sense not only of what he's working on the much grander regional scale, but how we can fit into that. So that, in my mind, was a very useful exercise for that committee, and Barry's offered to come back whenever he's asked to do so and work on our behalf.
As soon as I had lunch with Greg Janda today.
Yeah.
And that was, he brought that subject up, the airport, because we were talking about what we're going to do at the airport and Bosch, and they're going to have a definite need for airport access to this area.
Oh, absolutely. Without doubt. Greg Janda is the mayor of Rockland currently, for those who did not know. And then we also had the airport committee meeting along the way, and the major topic of that meeting has been addressed here tonight. So I think you're all up to date on that one. And I've got PCTPA tomorrow morning.
Committees. And
I have an information item.
Actually, I have.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Sorry, we're just over here having a conversation that we then missed the.
I missed the library
had-
meeting. I'm so sorry.
Besides the airport, 3 other committee meetings that have all been absolute normal business. So nothing to report. Now,
I have an information item. On Friday in Sacramento, I attended a naturalization ceremony. There was about 40 new U.S. citizens were sworn in, took their oath of allegiance to the United States. One of them being my wife, Anna. Okay. And on yesterday, she went and registered to vote and voted for the first time.
moment.
Dan, quick question, if I may, before we adjourn. I've had a couple of meetings now that I sat in on with the school district, mostly dealing with Village One and trying to resolve some school site location issues there with the development community. My sense is that we're back to where the city, at least the council and the board, the school board are not communicating. Are we having our 2x2 meetings with the district? And if not, how do we get those back on
I
track?
think the last one we had was before the holidays, right, Sean? When was it?
I don't,
See, I think that's the problem.
I don't
So-
recall, honestly, I don't recall having one
I don't think
for
that-
quite a while, maybe at least 6 months, but we both sit in so many meetings, it's hard, it'll be easy for me to forget. I think it's been some time and it's not regular, that's for sure.
But yeah.
It's supposed to be
should
once a
be.
quarter, right?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be minimum once a quarter.
Yeah.
And if there
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
issues, intense issues that need to be addressed more frequently, you're supposed to be able to expand to that. So I guess my request would be, let's get that back on track.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And they were, in my conversations with them at the same time, as everybody else, that was a major thing is, why are we talking about this now?
Mhm.
Meet. And found out we don't meet. They don't meet with anybody. So,
We'll just put them out quarterly and we'll get commitments.
I would even say, if we show up and they don't show up, that's okay for a couple of meetings, because that'll speak volumes. We're there, we're open to the conversation, and we need partners on the other side.
Next item, information items. No information items. During the meeting.